Mr. Otieno, we are live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Maybe let's just wait for 1 minute as our audience tune in, and let's just wait for like 1 minute so that our audience tune in. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay.
Maybe just mute your mic a bit. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Humans of Oromia report launch. Today, you have here Mr. Kana Golich and Mr. Brian Otieno, two of us lawyers by profession. And just maybe I will allow Mr. Otieno to introduce himself, and then we go a bit deeper to that. Mr. Otieno, it's a pleasure to have you, and welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kana. Good morning to everyone, and my name is Brandon Otieno. I'm a lawyer who is based in Nairobi, and I have a very deep interest in international law issues to do with human rights. And apart from that, I'm also a writer. Yes. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you, and thank you very much. And our amazing audience to always tune in, and we are always, indebted to them. So, Mr. Otieno, let me just introduce. Today we are discussing Humans of Oromia, a report that meet yourself a bit. Yeah. Thank you. We are introducing a report that we have been, throughout 2020-21, we have, as an organization, first of all, let me introduce the organization, what we do. And all is an advocacy organization that advocate for, Oromo rights and human rights throughout the world. And we have championed, for various human rights, violation and advanced the right of others, Oromos and also other Ethiopians. Today we are launching a report, we have been writing throughout 2021. And as you know, that report contain various human rights violations that happened throughout 2021 in Ethiopia, from extrajudicial killing to enforced disappearance to rape and other sexual violation, from children being recruited from those, I'm sorry, I had a network issue. From those people who are caught from the crossfire, and because of the arms, the conflict that's currently going on in Ethiopia. So that report contained, a bunch of, human rights violations there. And my overview of the report is that, those are just a sample of, various in-depth human rights violations happening in Ethiopia. And my overview is that that report, contain a very serious human rights violation, just a bit of it. And if you go look deeper to that, you will, go and the other human, link that is being left there. And if you read, you'll get in deeper to that and see how, even socio-economic, right of, women, children, and elder people are affected. And that's the report we are launching. And I will now pass it to you and see, give your overview of the report before we go to analysis a bit one by one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kana. I got the opportunity to look at the report that you are talking about, the Humans of Oromia 2021 annual report. And some of the issues that have been raised in the report are very interesting and important issues that ought to be analyzed and regarded carefully within the international legal spectrum. So, first of all, there is the issue of the extrajudicial killings that you've talked about. There's the issue of enforced disappearances. There's the issue of rape and there's the issue of rape and sexual violence. There's the issue of arbitrary arrests and detentions. There's the issue of recruitment and the use of child soldiers, children by the armed forces. So these are very serious issues, not just within the Ethiopian domestic law, but within the international legal arena because of the consequences that they have from a human rights perspective. So I think if you get to look at the report keenly, you realize that some of these issues they had been present before and they've been impactful negatively to the Oromo people, but they've also been magnified by the current Tigray war that is 1 year on in Ethiopia. Yes, yes. So I actually think that the report is timely, and some of these concerns need to be addressed. I think that there are some important international human rights laws that have been highlighted within the report, such as the UN Convention on the Rights of Children, which prohibits the use of child soldiers. That's just one legal regime that is being violated as per the report. And there's also legal instruments like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Yeah, so I think generally that's another important legal regime that's being violated currently. So that's my brief overview of the report. I think that it's so timely and should be given some serious thought.
Yeah, thank you very much for your great insight. And I would like us to start from the enforced disappearance. And if you have seen our reports from the enforced disappearance, where for example, the case studies there under enforced disappearance, where taken out of prison at night and never to be seen again. And by that report, specifically in July 2021, where two young men, one of them called Borugui and the other one Dejane, were taken from prison at night, and they have never been seen again. And if, for example, we take that one from the international human rights laws perspective, and I will say International Convention for Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, compel the states, to fight enforced disappearance, but where now the state itself have get involved into such issues, and you will see the state violating the right of others, the right of people. Two young men, young men who are being taken out, and they have never seen again. And you see from that report, if you have seen what of the laws that has been violated, international laws that has been violated there, and you'll see UN declaration of that protect people from enforced disappearance. Mr. Otieno, you lost me a bit, and you're back. I'm glad you're back. And if you can hear me, I'm just introducing the enforced disappearance as an example of case study where two young men, one of them called Boru and the other one called Dejane, were taken out of prison in Borana zone in July 2021, and they have never been seen again since. And I was just, tackling some, international regime where, you have seen UN declaration that protect all persons from enforced disappearance, statutes like international criminal courts, and, prohibiting and I have seen again, when people are enforced, disappear, they are not the only victim. The family, also are the victim because sudden separation, lack of news where their loved one are, uncertainty, loss of, that also affect the family. And you see, the victim are not only people who are, kidnapped by the state or the state agent. And I've seen some of, insight from international laws where UN declaration that prohibit people from being enforced disappearance, and then Statute of International Criminal Court prohibiting such enforced disappearance. What is your say on that from the international human rights laws? Can you still hear me well? Mr. Otieno, can you still hear me? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You are unmute. You are mute. Unmute yourself. Okay, let me go on then. Maybe you have a bit of challenges. Let now go to extrajudicial killing, where in this report, Humans of Oromia, there are a lot of extrajudicial report that we have covered throughout 2021, and one of it is a case study where extrajudicial people are taken out of prison and killed, or people are kidnapped on the road and then executed publicly. And this extrajudicial killing is first of all, right to life is protected as one of the fountain where all the other rights are driven from. Whenever a person is not alive, he doesn't enjoy other right or other right. Life, so right to life is very important. And whenever people are taken out of prison and they're killed, the other right, definitely those person lose the other right and they will not enjoy other right. And I have seen from the international regime, UADR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 3, covers about the right to life, the most fundamental and basic rights of the life. And the ICCP, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, Article 3, again, try to emphasize on that, and the dignity, human dignity and the right to life of individuals are protected. So whenever people are killed, extrajudicially executed, taken out of prison by government or government agent and killed, those are the international regime that's being violated. And the Geneva Convention also prohibit people being killed. And then from that one, and you have seen Africa Charter on Human and People's Right, again, protect, right to life of individuals. Those are the avenues. And Mr. Otieno, I hope you can hear me right now. You're back. Your mic a bit have issue. I don't know. I can't hear you, but I think you have a problem with your mic. Yeah. I think apologies to audience. I think we are a bit having a challenge with our two lawyers who are in the house. Mr. Otieno, can you still hear me? Gosh. Okay, Miss Elizabeth, can you still hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me right now?
Hey.
Yeah, exactly. I can hear you now, Mr. Otieno. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I think, thank you so much. So I think before my network went off, I heard you were talking about enforced disappearances. Maybe I can add something on the same.
Yeah, tackle it from the case study we have given on enforced disappearance, where, two young men. What's your insights? Tackle it from there.
Okay. So there's this case of Boruguyo and Daraji who had been held for months without charges by the police and were taken from Mio police station by Ethiopian security forces to an undisclosed location, and their families have been unable to locate them since, right? Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
What's
So
your
we
take?
have that case. Yeah. Okay. So under international law, like you do, we realize that enforced disappearances they usually involve the arrest or the detention of a person by the state officials or their agents, and there's an aspect of refusal to acknowledge the arrest or to reveal the whereabouts of the person. So if you look at this case, the case of these two young men who were taken from prison and they just disappeared. It's a classic case of enforced disappearance under international law, and not only does it violate the human rights and the liberties of individuals, it also violates the right to fair trial because I believe that within Ethiopian domestic legal regime and under international law, there is that right to fair trial where people should be taken through the ordinary court processes and they should be charged, and if they are found guilty, then they're supposed to be convicted to prison, and they should just vanish out of the face of this world. That's unlawful and it's inhuman. So I think another important international legal regime that I might state, which outlaws this crime of enforced disappearances, is the Rome Statute. Usually, if you read the Rome Statute, you notice that it classifies enforced disappearance as a crime against humanity, especially when it's committed as a part of a widespread or systemic attack that is directed against any civilian population with the knowledge of the attack. I the instance that we are discussing in this case might not meet the legal requirements stated in the Rome Statute, but I think there are other instances, especially if you look at the case study number 2 of the kidnapping of Oromo musicians that occurred on 4th September of 2021. Then there is the third aspect, the third example of Oromo youths being arrested and detained on the 4th of October 2021. So these are clear violations, and I believe that if the relevant government officials in the country are not careful, then who knows, maybe someday somebody might launch a complaint, or the prosecutor, the ICC can take cognizance of these violations or these enforced disappearances that are going on, which amount to crimes against humanity. So I'd also like to mention, in reference to that first case, during Hitler's rule in the Second World War, no, sorry, during Hitler's rule in the Third Reich, enforced disappearances were a very common phenomenon, and the cases of like those of these two gentlemen disappearing for months without being charged by the police, they were so common. Maybe just to bring to our attention, there is one particular trial known as the Keitels trial at the International Military Tribunals in Nuremberg, I believe, which mainly centered around the subject of enforced disappearances. Yeah, so back to you, Kana.
Thank you very much. I hope Miss Elizabeth, you joined us late, and we have already introduced the report, and we are now, tackling issues by issue. And I hope you can hear me. We can't see you because of your camera is off. So if you can just hear us, introduce yourself, greet our audience, and also, you can give a brief view of the report, your opinion about this report and your insight. Thank you. Miss Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yeah, can.
Yeah, I think we lost. Let's go to extrajudicial killing, and you have seen extrajudicial killing is one of the rampant that we have covered, in these annual reports. And one of the case studies is where, a guy by the name Mr. Amante was arrested by Oromia Special Police based in allegation that his son is a member of, Oile. That's an outlawed group by Ethiopian parliament, and where then he was, taken out of prison at night, where he was detained, and then he was extrajudicially executed in his body was dumped and found in the street of a town called Guracha. In that case, and one of my analysis will be right to life is protected by a number of and various number of international treaties. And I was saying right to life is the fountain of all other rights. So whenever a person is not alive, he will never enjoy other rights. And one of the international legal regime that is violated in this case is the Article 3 of UDR, UDR is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where now right to life is the most fundamental and basic right that human right enjoys. And then another, international regime that is violated in this case is Article 6 of International Convention on Civil and Political Rights that, see human beings as, people with dignity, and their dignity should be respected. People should not be, executed, killed when you have not allowed them, fair hearing, you have not taken to, competent courts. You don't just take out people out of prison at night and kill them. And another international regime that is being violated in this case, where Mr. Amante was taken out of prison and killed, who is the Geneva Convention of 1949. And then another international regime, Mr. Otieno, a bit mute yourself, please. Yeah, thank you. So another international regime being violated in this case is African Charter on Human and People's Rights. That's, protect the right of life, that, people have dignity, they are human beings like fellows like you. You should not just execute them. You should allow them, fair hearing, take them to court, charge them if they have, fine them instead of killing. So, and then these are just few cases, and I will just handle it back to Mr. Otieno, and if you can hear me now, see, from now we are discussing about extrajudicial killing. What do you see about what an international regime that is violated, and how can the remedies, victim can get the remedy? Victim in this case means the families, where under international legal regime, where can the families get reparation in that case? Over to you.
Sorry, I didn't get the last part right. We are talking about which case study?
We are talking about extrajudicial killing, where a guy by name Mr. Amante was taken out of prison at night and killed. Yeah.
Okay. As we know, like extrajudicial killings, they're usually killings that are not sanctioned by the law. Usually, in most legal regimes, murder is only allowed when it's been sanctioned by the courts, maybe through death sentence, or maybe if somebody is doing it in self-defense. But in any murder that occurs outside that realm is considered to be extrajudicial killings, and that's usually unlawful both within domestic laws and international law. So in this first case, I can see that Mr. Amantin was arrested. Then I think he was extrajudicially executed, and his body was found in the middle of the street. That not only violates that violates the right to life, which is very fundamental, which is a very fundamental right. You know that all these are the rights that we have: the freedom of movement, the right to human dignity, all those, the freedom of expression. We can't enjoy them if we lack the right to life. So when somebody is executed extrajudicially, then they are obviously denied the right to life. And if you look at the Ethiopian constitution, I believe in Article 14, it states that the right to life, the security of a person, and the liberty should always be guaranteed at all times. So whenever we have extrajudicial killings, then there's obvious causes for fear, disorder, and panic, and that can hinder the productivity of not just the this is not just it does not just affect the Oromo people, but it affects the entire republic. So I think that in this case, the family of Mr. Amantin can seek judicial redress. I believe that there are legal processes such as judicial inquests that can be launched so that in order to conduct the necessary investigations into the nature of the execution, and with such there can be some legal remedies because usually if a killing is unlawful as this was, then legal remedies would be warranted, and some of the legal remedies that we know would be to hold the relevant public officials or government officials accountable by taking them through the trial process and jailing the culprits. And also, we can have compensation for the families that are affected. Yeah, yeah. So those are just some of the remedies that the family can seek. Back to you, Kana.
Thank you very much. Now, I think Miss Elizabeth Ombija, you're back, and I don't know whether you have a technical issue with your camera, but we can't see you. But just as I said, introduce yourself to our audience. And then you can give an overview. We are discussing the issue of extrajudicial killing in this report right now. We have already done the enforced disappearance, and just over to you, Miss Elizabeth. Thank you.
Hello, Kana. Sorry, I just found out I've been talking to myself, and yeah, it's really disturbing. Sorry, I cannot put my camera on because of some technical issues on my end. And yeah, so where are you guys? I'm not sure where you are.
Yeah, we have. I've already told you we have tackled the issue. We have introduced the report. We have tackled the issue of enforced disappearance. We have also now tackled the issue of extrajudicial killing. And then we just maybe you now go to introduce yourself, and then also just give your overview of the report. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So I'm Elizabeth Ombija, and yeah, thank you, Kana, for allowing me to be on this forum. Yeah, I've looked at the report, and I'm really grateful for this platform for bringing into light. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you well. Just proceed.
Okay, so I'm really grateful for this platform for bringing into light some of the some of the human rights violations which have been happening to not only the Oromo people but to all persons around the world. And yeah, I want to say that human rights are universal, and it does not apply to a certain individual, or it does not apply to people in power only. It also applies to the young people, it applies to the old, it applies to the rich and the poor, because we are inherently humans, and we are supposed to enjoy these rights as human beings. Yeah, so in the report, I have seen a number of human rights violations against the Oromo people. You've talked about enforced disappearance. You've talked about kidnapping. You've talked about extrajudicial killings. I guess you are on the extrajudicial killing part. And
Exactly. We are there, and you can just maybe give your insight just in 2 minutes. Thank you.
oh, okay. So, extrajudicial executions is one of the most, I mean, ju- it's one of the human rights violations which happen, all over the world. We find out that, people are detained, people disappear mysteriously, and then you find out they died or their bodies cannot be retrieved. So yeah, that is one of the grievous, the grievous human right violation. which happens to people around the world. And here we are talking about the Oromo people. Yeah, so Kana, give me 2 minutes so that I prepare myself, because I have technical hitches, so that I can come back to you.
Thank you very much, and no
Okay.
problem. We can just carry on. Now we are now going to the aspect of arbitrary arrest and detention, and you know arbitrary arrest under international laws is a violation of human rights, because people should not just be arrested without court warrant, without being given individuals knowing why they are arrested, and this has been rampant case through 2021 in the Humans of Oromia. And if we now go to the case study, just recently, just a month ago, where a vocal government critic TV, who normally critic government, was by the name called Mr. Tasfai, was arrested from his house where he's nursing his mom at home in Addis, and then he was taken out of arbitrarily arrested and taken to police station. Until now, under detention, he has not been taken to courts. No one has even informed him the charges, and those are the just few examples that we are dealing with it. And this time round, I just want to Mr. Otieno to go fast from the arbitrary arrest and see bring those international legal aspect that is being violated. Mr. Otieno, I will pick it up from you. I will pass this arbitrary arrest to you and bring insight. Oh, Mr. Otieno, I think today we are technical issues there and every time. And let me just pick it up. And when someone is arbitrarily arrested, that is them take arrested without court warrant, and Ethiopia government have used in 2021. They have used the what is called the state of emergency proclamation, where people are arrested without warrant, where people are because of the state of emergency, people are taken and arrested from their house and then kept in detention without charges. And the state have used these privileges, and although this you can derogate from this right during state of emergency, there are certain right now when people are arbitrarily arrested in Ethiopia. And this Humans of Oromia report, they were beaten, they were tortured, they are kept in the dark room, they are kept in a place where their families cannot recollect them, cannot visit them, cannot able to and this has made the families to struggle to search from one place and another place, and all under international regime, take it from civil and political right, where Ethiopia is a party to it. And these laws, by arbitrarily arresting individuals and taking them, detaining them indefinitely without taking to court, they have violated UHDR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They have violated, Convention Against Torture by, beating people in detention, electrocuting them, torturing them. And this and the international regime that, when you arbitrarily arrest people or detain them, you violate. Mr. Otieno, are you back? Mr. Otieno, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes. Pick it up now from where I left. I was, bringing the talking about arbitrary arrest and detention and some international regime being violated. In the case of where Mr. Taswai, a vocal TV, Ubuntu TV presenter, was detained, and is still under detention just because of critiquing the government in political and economic policy.
Okay. Thank you for your insights regarding the same. So maybe just to pronounce myself on the same. There's a common observation among most authoritarian regimes in the use of arbitrary arrest and detention in silencing their critics. And to be honest, it's a significant violation of human rights of people within those states, because naturally arbitrary arrest and detention are not the correct procedures for approaching dealing with critics or handling of citizens who have broken the law in any way. Um, we all know that these kind of arrests or detentions do not usually align with the procedures that are established by most domestic laws and international human rights laws. So, if you look at the current international human rights law regime, there is a guarantee of liberty and a guarantee of the right to fair trial in most international conventions. We have the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, which is just one of them. There's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There's even closer to home, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. They all prohibit the arbitrary arrest and detention of people. These instruments are categorical in the fact that somebody should be arrested procedurally. They should be told why they're being arrested, and they should be detained legally, meaning that they should be brought to court as soon as possible, and they should not be denied that fair trial process, because that violates not just the laws that we have, but also their dignity. So even I think if you look at in regard to this case of the vocal Ethiopian political analyst being arrested on December 7th, this is the kind of illegal arrest and detention that we are discussing today. I think it is in Article 17 of the Ethiopian Constitution, which 17 Article 17 sub Article 2, which expressly states that all Ethiopians are guaranteed the right to liberty, and they should not be subject to arbitrary arrests. So in any democratic society, what happened to Mr. Safai is illegal and should not be tolerated. And these are some of the things that human rights actors, the international community, journalists, and members of the civil society in general should be proactive in condemning, so that in order to force the government to act in the right way. Yes. Thank you, Kana.
Thank you very much. You have brought, the great insight, and you have seen that injustice happening everywhere. Demand condemnation. International community. We are calling on international community and all people to condemn what's happening to young people, what's happening to the media personalities, the journalists. That we have covered in this Humans of Oromia annual reports. Mrs. Elizabeth, I hope you are back. I just want to hear your insight on the arbitrary arrest and detention. Miss Elizabeth?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You proceed. Give us your insight in this report on the arbitrary arrest and detention.
Okay. So, the Constitution of Ethiopia, Article 14, 17, 19, 20, 25, and 37, talks about, liberty, protection against arbitrary arrest, a prompt process of law, equality before the law, and that a judicial matter will be decided by a competent judicial power. But the Ethiopian government, has been charged with arbitrary arrest of the Oromo students, and holding them indefinitely and incommunicado, often on fabricated charges of terrorism. So yeah, despite the laws that the Ethiopia as a state has, there has been no implementation, or there has been a problem of
Yeah, have lost this technical issue has become a problem, and maybe people are not used to this platform. Yeah, she's saying that Ethiopian government has this theory of arresting people, arbitrarily detaining them indefinitely incommunicado for so long that their right is violated. And I just want to Mr. Otieno, or where can we get remedies for such people beside the national courts and even beside the UN Committee on Human Rights? Where can we channel our cries or the cries of young people? Where can they get remedies? Where can victim can get remedies in such case?
The issue about remedies, I think that one of the things that seem to be working in this current century, that because of the global community that we are part of, it's very hard for nations to exist in isolation. So one of the advantages that come as a result of this is that the pressure from the international community regarding some of these blatant injustices can force the hand of governments to handle some of these issues correctly and remedy some of the situations that they are causing in the countries regarding arbitrary arrests and detentions. I think aside from the pressure from international community, there's also the issue of we have the African Court on Human Rights because usually and I'm speaking about this from the Kenyan perspective, during the Moi regime in Kenya, which was deemed to be very dictatorial, it was very hard. Arbitrary arrests and detentions were very common, and it was very hard for the victims to seek recourse in the judiciary and get remedies as they deserve, because the courts were also unusually aligned with the executive. So victims of arrest, detention, and torture like Gitobu Imanyara, um, they never got to get their remedies and maybe just get satisfaction from the fact that the legal process has been followed till later on after the regime had ended. So maybe seeking recourse at the African Court of Human Rights can help with getting remedies to such violations. I believe that Ethiopia as a country has acceded to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and therefore they subscribe to its ideologies and its organs, such as the court itself. There are cases in the past concerning different human rights violations in different countries where people have gone to the court to seek remedies for violation of the individual rights, and the court has pronounced itself on the same. So I think such kind of pressure can help in bringing remedies to such. And I also think that aside from moving to constitutional courts to get the legal justice, there is also the issue of I think all parties have a right have an a part to play in remedying these situations. Like for example, we have the media. If the media can constantly highlight some of these human rights violations, then it can put a pressure on the government to correct their wrongs and to make sure that they discontinue the approach of using arbitrary arrest and detention to silence their critics. And that can be an important step going forward. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Miss Elizabeth, we lost you as you are speaking. Do you want to go back and finish what you're saying? Okay, let's proceed. Now let's shift to the issue of rape and other sexual violation. And in the Humans of Oromia, we have also documented sexual violations throughout 2021 you have seen there is this case studies where Oromo young boys in East Guji, where a place called Jidola, when they protested against the injustice, government are doing, they were arrested by military and taken to the military camp. And after they were taken military camp, the report alleged that they were, sexually assaulted in the military camp, sodomized by many soldiers, and that is against, sexual molesting young boys in the military camp, and in specific now under international legal regime, sex, raping of people, raping of underage boys, even not is a violation of the constitution in Ethiopia criminal procedure. And again, let us pick it up from there. When people are now, young people are arrested because of protesting against the government, and then they are taken to military camps, sodomized, and such kind of activities happen, there are various international regime that's being violated. And Miss Elizabeth, if you can still hear me, we have now gone to the issue of rape and sexual violation in this Humans of Oromia report, where young men were they were protesting against the government, and then they were, detained for several weeks in the military camp in a place called East Guji, and then they were, raped and by as many as, more than 20 Ethiopian soldiers, and their rights are violated. What's your take, if you can hear us on this? What are the international regime that's, from your perspective, from your insight, things that are violated when the military do such kind of, act, and how can we hold them accountable? Miss Elizabeth, still are you there? Okay. Mr. Otieno, I hope you can still there. What's your take?
Yes.
What's your take in this sexual violation and rape?
Okay, thank you. I'm Silly and I can hear you perfectly. So I think that what happened to these 5 male miners in the hands of the Ethiopian military personnel is very unfortunate because let's face it, usually the military, the police, and all the security forces. As civilians, we expect to be very much safe in their hands, and we don't expect such atrocities to happen. They're supposed to be giving us protection and not inflicting harm on ordinary civilians. So rape and forms of sexual violence, they are unfortunate incidences that are not only outlawed domestically but also within the international legal regime. Take, for example, rape. Rape, on the surface of it, it can be defined as sexual intercourse that does not involve consent. And it does not necessarily, usually in most jurisdictions around the world, rape does not usually just involve minors. It also involves people who are over 18, as long as they do not consent to such acts. So as you can see from this Humans of Oromia report, that it affects the Oromo people significantly, and there is the Oromo boys mentioned in the case study. So I do think that the issue of rape and sexual violence has been compounded by the ongoing civil war in Ethiopia. Um, you see, recently I read a report from Al Jazeera that stated that there are so many increased gang rapes of civilians by both Eritrean and Ethiopian soldiers. We all know that the Eritrean and Ethiopian soldiers are collaborating to fight the Tigran People Liberation Front. Yes. So as a result of this, there are so many allegations of sexual violence that smear not just the Eritrean soldiers but also the Ethiopian soldiers. And we've seen in this instance of Ethiopian military personnel raping 5 male minors, which is very atrocious. So I think if you look at the Ethiopian domestic law, just as you said, Kana, the constitution and the constitution usually gives power to certain statutes, such as the Ethiopian Criminal Code, which prohibits sexual violence. And I would like to particularly mention Article 626 and 627 of the Ethiopian Criminal Code, which prohibit sexual intercourse with or penetration of a juvenile below the age of 13 years old or below 13 and 18. So clearly, the military personnel in this example violated all these laws. And aside from those domestic laws, it's important to take cognizance of the Rome Statute, which outlaws sexual violence. If you look at Article 7(1)(g) of the Rome Statute, it states that crimes against humanity include rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, and some other forms of sexual violence. Then, if you further go down to Article 8 of that same Rome Statute, it confirms that rape and other forms of sexual violence constitute grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions. Aside from that, we also have the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which classifies sexual violence as a form of discrimination that is based on sex. So based on those domestic laws and the international legal regimes, we can see that what happened to these Oromo boys in East Guji zone was illegal, unfortunate, and the military personnel who are responsible should be taken through the court-martial process of being through the court-martial process and be brought to justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your great insight. And what I could learn from where you left is that we can also have a remedy at African Human Rights Commission, African courts, and we can also have a remedy at Committee Against Torture, the UN Committee, Human Rights Committee, by lodging complaint. And now let us shift our our focus on recruitment of young children below the age of 18 to fight the hostility in the northern Tigray. And I must incite that in 2021, through Humans of Oromia report, we have documented where young people as young as 13 years old, 14 years old are recruited to join Ethiopian military to fight against the Tigray defense force in the northern Tigray. And this is a serious violation of human rights. And as you know, they are under the international regime. They are legal regime that protect recruitment of children who are underage. And Ethiopia is party to the protocol 1 of protocol 1 of 18 June 1997, in addition to Geneva Convention that prohibits recruitment of children under the age of 18 to the military. And Ethiopia, as done contrary to this, now they have recruited young people through blackmailing. And one of our example case in this case study is where a young girl by the name called Tume Duba was recruited in town Borana zone called Dubluk through blackmailing, where our parents were given promise some large amount of money if they allow their children to join the Ethiopian military and fight for the country. And that violates major international laws like the Convention on the Right of the Child, Convention on the Right of the Child, Article 38, highlights saying that children who are below 18 should not be recruited to join military. And Ethiopia is party to UN Convention on the Right of the Child. They are party to Protocol 1 of 18 June 1987, the additional protocol on Geneva Convention. And these are, again, the Constitution itself allows, the Ethiopian Constitution itself says that children, everything should be done in the interest of the child. And the interest of the child is not to join military, to take a gun and fight. What's your take, Mr. Otieno, on this? Mr. Otieno, what's your take on that? Mr. Otieno, are you there? Still there? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your take on the recruitment of young children?
Yeah. Oh, you can hear me, Kana?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
So, Okay, thank you. So regarding this issue of the recruitment and use of child soldiers by the armed forces, I agree with your sentiments on the same, and I agree with the sentiments of the report. Believe that it's wrong. It's wrong both morally and legally to use children in warfare because naturally children they do not have the understanding or the comprehension to rationally make decisions regarding the sides that they should be fighting. During such warfare in the first place. So, I mean, that's just one of the obvious reasons why the use of children in warfare has been outlawed. Then it's so unfortunate that in the current ongoing Tigray war, the Ethiopian armed forces has been blackmailing children to be part of the warfare and to help them in fighting the TPLF in the northern part of Ethiopia, which is the Tigray region. That constitutes a violation of not just international criminal law but also international humanitarian law. If we look at some of the um, highly cherished principles of international humanitarian law, you realize that they prohibit the recruitment and use of children under the age of 15 in war, just as you said, Kana. Um, then there's also the UN Convention on the Rights of Child that you've stressed upon. The convention is very categorical that children under the age of 15 should not be recruited to armed forces to fight such wars. Then I think I would also like to bring to our attention Article 77.2 of the Additional Protocol 1, which calls for children below 15 years not to be used or recruited to war. Then I think lastly there is Article 4.3 of Additional Protocol 2, which only applies to conflicts of non-international conflicts that are non-international in nature. So the article defines some of the safeguards that should be put in place for children during conflicts. And aside from these international conventions, we also have the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of Children and the Rome Statute. In fact, it's important to note that lately these international conventions are going beyond the ordinary prohibition of use of children in warfare. They're also like giving mandates on how children generally can be protected in the case of both armed and non-armed conflicts. Thank you, Kana.
Yeah, thank you very
Back
much
to
for
you.
your. Yeah, thank you. You have brought the great insight that children don't understand this. Then recruiting children, taking them on the battlefront affect their mental well-being, their health, and some of them are also used for sexual slavery, and these are why international laws prohibit use of children. Now let us shift our focus on the aspect of international humanitarian laws. Now we are going there under Humans of Oromia report. There is also failure by the government to to safeguard the life of civilian during the armed conflict. And as you know, in Ethiopia right now, there are various parties to the armed conflict. OLA being Oromo Liberation Front being the party to the conflict, Gambela rebels being party to the conflict. Walaitas have their own, rebels, and the Ethiopian Defense Force also fights. And under the Humans of Oromia reports, and I want to just introduce some, principles of international laws, and that under international humanitarian laws, the civilian population is protected, from danger arising to military operation. And one of the greatest principles there, the principle of distinguish that between the civilian, civilian properties and between the military properties. There is also the principle of under Article 1, Article 4, Article 3 of protocol under Geneva Convention, where now you should first of all, when there is armed conflict arise, you must protect civilian who are not taking part in the conflict. you must protect the civilian properties. And under the this report that today we are launching, there is a failure by the Ethiopian government to unable to protect civilians. And one of it is being in one of the cases study in this case is where in East Guji in a town called Nagelle Borana, where a young man was caught between. Mr. Tieno, please mute yourself a bit. Mute your mic. Mr. Otieno, please mute your mic. Mr. Otieno, can you still hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you. I can see today you have a lot of technical issues. I'm sorry for that. And I've just introduced, IHL, where, international humanitarian laws, and one of the principles that is the protection of civilian properties and their properties and civilian life. And one of the principles I was talking about, the principle of distinction, where you distinguish between civilian property, their homes, before taking any military action. And one of the cases studied in this report is where a young man by the name, a young man was caught during the clash happened between Oromo Liberation Front and Ethiopian military, happened in Nagelle Borana town. This person, is a taxi driver, and in the morning he was going for his own, daily bread, and then he was, he was hit by a bullet and killed. No one knows how he was killed, and this is a failure of the government to protect civilian life. And I would say one of the failure of the government to do this, and is because they are unable to differentiate whenever you are under control certain area, you control certain area, you must protect the civilian life that under your control, whether you are a government force or a rebel. When you control certain area, you protect their safety, you protect their life, and that is where now the government fell to protect the civilian life, and now this individual lost his life. So, Mr. Otieno, your internet is shaky a bit. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. And if you can hear me, we are just on the last stage of discussing about protection of civilian population during the armed conflict and the failure of the government to protect, people who are caught on the crossfire, people who are not combatant, people who are innocent, they are not taking part in a conflict. And if you can hear me, you can just maybe give your legal analysis or insight on this case. Mr. Otieno, can you still hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, go on, please.
Okay. So I believe we're discussing the last issue, which is failure to safeguard the lives of civilians during armed conflict, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so regarding this, like all the other issues that we've discussed tonight, we have the current international human rights law regime contains obligations for states and non-state actors to protect individuals from human rights violations. And these violations, they range from the right to life. They range from things like murder of civilians, there's rape of civilians, there's denial of access to food, there's all those dangers that civilians may encounter during wars. And these violations are mainly committed by states. They can either be committed by states and state actors, but in the case of the Oromo people in Ethiopia, we do realize that mostly it has been the state that has been violating the rights of civilians and failing to protect them, especially in the ongoing civil war, which I have to mention again because of its impact on the rights of Oromo people. So before I can delve deeply into the subject, I'd just like to highlight that you see the ongoing Tigray war, it has resulted in a situation whereby both forces are in an intense fighting situation, and it's hard even to get food aid to civilians who are not part of the war, especially in the northern regions of Ethiopia. So this is a challenge, and the fact that the Ethiopian government has been so adamant about not adhering to or creating conditions that it would easily enable the flow of aid is just showing you how culpable they are in the failure to safeguard the lives of civilians. Because if they were caring enough, then if they were caring enough, they would ensure that they make it possible for food aid to go to the civilians who are not involved in the war, not just within the northern region, but also in other regions of the country. And you know, when most of these civilians cannot get aid, they are unable to survive or to live the fulfilling lives that they usually do during the ordinary circumstances. So this affects the Oromo people too, because I believe that they are scattered all over the country, and some of them exist in the northern parts that have been rendered inaccessible to aid under all circumstances. So I'd also like to say that I think, as you mentioned, even during an international armed conflicts, humanitarian law is applicable. And this means that civilians have the right to enjoy any kind of protections that might the right to enjoy general protection from the dangers that might arise from military operations. But there's usually an exception, which is that unless they take direct part in hostilities, then maybe their rights can be forfeited. But I think as in regard to this case study and from the general reports currently regarding the situation ongoing in Ethiopia, there is a massive failure to safeguard the lives of civilians. Yes, back to you, Kana.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are just now we are going to, if just if we go back now to overview of this report that we are launching, a great report of 2021 and what the organization was able to document. There is also now recommendation to the government and also to international communities. And you have seen, I think you have seen one of the, recommendation to Ethiopian government to, to hold these individuals accountable, to allow independent, institution to be established to investigate this, massive violation of human rights going on there. Just last night we were writing about where, more than 100 people were killed, recommendation, our recommendation, and that's to the Ethiopian government, to international community like the United States, should keep pressing the Ethiopian government to respect. We also, call on to respect the right of their own citizen, the international community, and also for the media. Like what Mr. Otieno said is that the media must keep highlighting the human rights violation, must all the government accountable, and these are the various recommendations. The Ethiopian government must allow independent organization to go down in Oromia and investigate all these human rights violations we have documented throughout 2021. Our report is live on our website. Go to www.all.organ. Go to also our Twitter account at Ola Oromo. Go to our Instagram, Ola Oromo. So you will get this report and read analysis. There's a lot of analysis there. This report, give you the insight, will open your brain. We have, highlighted, we have, add the regional balance of the reports, and see the report is great, and you will get a lot of insight of what we have documented throughout 2021. There are serious human rights violations from extrajudicial killing to enforced disappearance, failure to protect civilian life, people taken out of the prison and killed, government critics still under detention, arbitrary arrest where, women are also, arrested with their children. So we also recommend the media houses to go to this, website and see these reports. We also, a lot of our Oromo audience globally, to come out and read this report and see for yourself the massive human rights violation that this organization able to document. And we must we must, keep advocating for, people who cannot able to advocate for themselves. And I think I will leave it there, because I will also, will appreciate my audience for the great, your great listening and taking your time to listen to us. We obviously apologize for technical inches here and there. Some of our guests are new to this platform, and that's why they are experiencing a lot of technical issue. So let leave there. And these are great reports. Go to our website, like I said, on our Facebook, Ola Oromo Leadership and Advocacy Association on the Facebook, on the Twitter, there's all that there. Yeah, Mr. Otieno, you're back. Mr. Otieno, you're back. Mr. Otieno, you're back, right? Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm just concluding. And trying to conclude. If you have the last word to, you can just say your last word before we conclude the, this live and this live show. If you can hear me still. I think you are still having a technical issue, Mr. Otieno. You can't hear me, right? Okay. So let us end it here. And thank you very much. And see you until next time. Thank you very much. See you in 2022. Follow us. You will have a lot of insight in 2022. We have great plan for you. So tune in, be with us, and thank you very much.